Hello and welcome to another GCSE revision video. In this video I'm going to look at long division. Okay, so what do we mean by division? Well, one way to look at it is repeated subtraction. For example, we could take the number 50 and if it was divided by 10, we're asking how many times can we take 10 away from 50 until we've got nothing left. So the answer is we can take 10 away from 50 5 times. So 50 divided by 10 is 5. Fair enough, but what happens if it doesn't divide equally? For example, 53 divided by 10, well, we can take 10 away from 53 5 times, but we have 3 left over. And that left over is what we call the remainder. Another way to look at it, and the more mathematically preferred way of looking at it, is to see division as the inverse of multiplication. So 50 divided by 10 is 5 because 10 times 5 is 50. So 50 divided by 10 is 5. It's very similar because with multiplication we can see that as repeated addition. So 10 times 5 is 50, which means 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 10 times over is 50, or alternatively 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, that's 5 lots of 10s, is 50. In the same way, division then is repeated subtraction, just as multiplication is repeated addition. So we can see division as the inverse or the opposite of multiplication. It's a way of going backwards to get the original question from the answer that multiplication gives us. With long division, what we're effectively doing is combining those two approaches by asking ourselves what number is multiplied by another number to give the product, and at the same time we're also using subtraction in order to find out what's left over. Okay, so taking the numbers, say 53 divided by 5, what number multiplied by 5 gives a result of 5? Well, in this case, 5 times 1 is 5. So we write down the 1. Okay, so 1 times 5 is 5, so all we do is write down the 5, and we make sure we line it up nicely with the correct column. So to find out the remainder, all we do is subtract the two 5s. In this case, 5 minus 5 is 0, so we write down the 0 to show that there's no remainder. And now we bring down the 3, just like that. And now what we're trying to do is divide the 5, or to divide the remainder by 5. In this case, 5 times 0 is 0, and 5 times 1 is 5, so there is no number that we can multiply by 5 to get 3, at least not a whole number. So we write in the nearest whole number that we can, which in this case is 0, because 0 times 5 is 0. Now 5 times 0 is 0, so we write in the 0. And now we subtract the 0 from the 3, and that leaves a remainder of 3. So 53 divided by 5 is 10 with a remainder of 3. But what do we mean by a remainder of 3? If we had 53 sweets to share equally between 5 people, everyone would get 10 sweets each, and we'd have 3 left over. That's what we mean by a remainder of 3. If we still tried to share those 3 sweets between 5 people fairly, then everyone would need to get a fraction of a sweet each. If there was just 1 sweet to share between 5 people, it's fairly obvious everyone would get 1/5 of a sweet each. But since there are 3 sweets left over, then everyone gets 3/5 of a sweet each. Okay, so if we wanted to convert that 10 and 3/5 into a decimal, all we would do is put a decimal point in and treat it like the normal long division. In this case, we can bring down the 0. And now we just divide the 30 by the 5. And since 5 times 6 is 30, we write in the 6 to the right of the decimal point that we've put in. So 53 divided by 5 is 10.6. Okay, well, so much for the theory. Let's have a go at putting that into practice. So let's just pick some arbitrary numbers. Let's pick, let's say 256, and let's divide it by 4. Okay, so how many times will 4 go into 2? Well, it won't. So we could be mechanical and just write down the 0, and then 0 times 4 is 0, and we take that away and that leaves us 0. So then, take that away, that leaves a 2, and then we bring down the 5, and then we're left with 4s into 25. So we might as well just start with the 4s into 25. So 4 goes into 25 how many times? Well, let's just have a quick guess. We know that 5 times 5 is 25, so we know that there's going to be more than 5 lots of 4 that makes 25. So let's try 6. What's 6 times 4? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, so 6 times 4 is 24. So let's do 6 times 4, because that's going to be as high as we can without going over. So 6 times 4 is 24. And if we take that away, that leaves 1. And note I wrote the 6 above the 5's column. I didn't write it above the 2's column because we're looking at 60 rather than 600, because 4 actually goes into 250 60 times. So that's why we've written it over this column. So now what we need to do is bring down the 6. So now we're asking how many times will 4 go into 16, and the answer is 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. And when we take that away, that leaves nothing at all, so that's the end. So 4 goes into 256 64 times. Why don't you make up some numbers of your own and divide them, and then check your work out on a calculator? And lastly, I would like to show that this can actually work with any numbers, no matter how difficult. Let's have a look at something really intimidating. So let's just pick some numbers like 2,396, and then we're going to divide that by something like 23, just to be really difficult. Okay, so again, we can work by just following the same mechanical process, but some level of estimation might be needed. But let's have a go. So we can't do 23s into 2, but 23 will go into 23 one time, so we can write down the 1. Now 1 times 23 is 23, and we take that away, and that leaves nothing. So we bring down the 9, so 23 goes into 9 0 times. 0 times 23 is 0, so that leaves a remainder of 9. Bringing that down, we're asking how many times will 23 go into 96? Well, this is where some level of estimation comes into. We can ask ourselves how many times will, say, 20 go into 100, and we know the answer is 5. And we know that 25 will go into 100 4 times. So the answer is going to be somewhere between 4 and 5 as a guess. So I'm going to guess 4 and see what happens. And I'm going to write on the side 23 times 4. Well, 4 times 3 is 12. And we carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8. plus 1 is 9, so that's 92, which is fairly close to 96. So the answer is 4. And then 4 times 23 we know is 92. And we take that away and that leaves 4. So the answer is 104 with 4 remainder. If we want, we can express that as a fraction and say this is 104 and 4/23. Or if we wanted to do it as a decimal, all we would do is put the decimal point in, and then we would add a 0, and we would bring down the 0. We would ask how many times does 23 go into 40, and we can carry on for as many decimal places as we want to express our answer to. Okay, I hope that was useful, and I would like to wish you all the best with your upcoming exams, and good luck. I'll see you in another video.